It is a post Las Vegas edition of We're Live, Pal. Double G here with Andrew Zarian. Andrew, you were very much missed in Las Vegas. We could have used some of that Zarian energy out there.
Why were you guys dying on Saturday?
Well, Saturday's fine. Sunday, you watched it. Sunday was a little long. Were you able to stay up and watch that show, or did you have to watch it the next morning?
No, I was able to stay up and watch that entire show. I had no problems. I think it was because Monday was a holiday.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people follow my pattern, and it was just so much going on that day. Like I was wired. We were outside. I was barbecuing. I had to go somewhere at 5. I came back. It was just such a busy day that I had no moment of okay, I'm getting tired. We were just busy, and then I watched it with the kids, and my father was watching the pay-per-view, so we kind of all were into it. I had a great time. I thought it was a great show. I didn't see. I mean, obviously there's issues, and we'll talk about it, but as a whole, it was fantastic.
The flamethrower kept you awake, is basically what you're saying. Just this watching
The flamethrower, yeah.
Watching someone engulfed in flames was. What did you think of the really, really extreme hardcoreness to Anarchy in the Arena? Like, it seems like now the idea is like, how do we one up what we did last year? Like, I was thinking, like, how do you one up flamethrower Darby and then super kicking Darby in the face with thumbtacks? Like, I don't know what's next. Like, what could you possibly do to one up that match?
Yeah, I the flamethrower spot was great. The best spot was Darby doing a coffin drop, or he did a coffin drop right when it hit Europe. It's the final countdown, and he does the drop from the top. That was great, or whatever it was, a splash. I can't remember, but that was fantastic. But Okada was the star.
You think so?
Okay, Okada wrestling in a garbage style match is everything that I want to see. And it seems like he's having the time of his life, but he has the same kryptonite that Hogan has.
Which is?
The second you hand that man a chair, his arms turn to spaghetti and he just does one of these. He hit them so soft and gentle with the chair. I thought it was Okada was funny to see in that. I really enjoyed it. I don't like those matches. I think I've been pretty vocal about that. Like, that's not my style of wrestling. But if it's done right,
you're saying this as you have a hardcore ECW wrestling signed right over your right shoulder.
Yeah. But you know what it was at that time? It wasn't done. It wasn't something that you saw. And being a kid, and I think Dave was speaking to you about this. Maybe it was last week, the week prior. ECW being on at 1:00 in the morning on a Saturday or a Friday on MSG was a big deal, and you felt that it was dirty. You weren't supposed to see it. It was adult. It worked for them in 1997, 1998. I don't, how much would it work now? I don't know. I don't think it would, but that style doesn't really attract me because we've seen it all. But I do want to say I was very entertained by that match. I had a great time watching that match. I'm not a hater if it's good. Even if it's not my genre, Listen, I like jazz music, right? How much jazz do I like? I describe it like that. I went to this awesome jazz bar 3 weeks ago, and I sat there and I listened to them play, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved it. Do I even know what the song was? No. Is it my genre of music? No, not at all. If you told me, hey, do you want to go to a jazz club? I would probably say no to you, but I was there for a great moment. Same thing for this. And I think that's an honest comparison. The genre of style is not what I'm into, but if it's done well, I could be into it.
I will say, very much like you, I'm not a fan of that style. The problem with that match to me is the suspension of disbelief, right? I think if you're kind of in it, you kind of take it for what it is. It's going to be psycho. It's sort of like going to see Fast and Furious, right? They're going to do these crazy stunts that don't make any sense. Gravity does not exist. You can go to space. And if you like those characters and you have fun with it and you're in on the joke, which is the Fast and Furious audience is in on the joke, then you love it. With AEW, if you're in on the executive VP shtick with the Young Bucks, if you're in on Jack Perry as the scapegoat, and I think you're fine with it. But you know, just if I was to show somebody who wasn't, they would go, "Oh, the guy got set on fire," and then he comes back 15 minutes later to win the match. Like, what the hell's going on? Is he Jason from Friday the 13th? Like how did
Kind
this
of
guy
is.
come back from the dead? And he was in a car crash where he got knocked out, 10 minutes before that. So there is a spectacle aspect. And this is kind of an interesting thing, because I think one of the really good things about AEW is it's a cornucopia of what professional wrestling is. Because if you give a generic, like, what is pro wrestling, the majority of casual pro wrestling fans would say, oh, it's WWE. But as you get more niche, there is a high spot style, there is an indie style, there is a lucha style, there is a strong style in New Japan. And what AEW seems to try and do is they try to bring all of those different styles together on one single show, and thus you can sort of satisfy every possible taste. But I think on the flip side is when you go so extreme like they did with that main event, the people who don't like that style may vehemently dislike that style even more because of how hard they did to shock shock your senses.
I look at wrestling as a genre of art, and it really is. And I think having different styles in each match, or as close to as each match, is a positive. You're displaying what pro wrestling is. It's not a one size fits all. We maybe got a little too close to the cookie cutter pro wrestler that we've seen from like 2003 on because of WWE, and one style ruled the last 20 years. I think it's great. A lot of criticism about that Kyle O'Reilly and Malachi Black match, right? That they did a Muay Thai different style match last week.
That was actually very cool, though. Yeah, that was a very cool match.
I loved it because it was something that was different. There's the argument that like the whole shoot style, UWF style does not work. I think it does if it's done with the right people. I thought that NXT did that weird pit fight. It was kind of an MMA match between Thatcher. It was Thatcher and Matt Riddle, right?
Mm-hmm.
During the pandemic or right before.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was great. It was a very different, unique aspect to something we don't see too often. I love wacky stuff. Bloodsport, love it, right? Everybody knows they're not going to kill each other. It's exposing it to some extent because you know what MMA is. But listen, you know what? It's a great visual. It's totally different. And I think that was a good thing about this pay-per-view. You had very different matches. Some I liked way more than others. I have a criticism of one match that I think a lot of people enjoyed, and then I watched it a second time, and I kind of saw it differently. But, it's fine to be critical, but I also think it's awesome to have different aspects of wrestling that reintroduces you to a certain style.
What was that match, by the way?
The Mercedes match.
Oh, you didn't like it
okay.
when it happened?
When it happened, when I was watching it live, right? What time was that? Like 11:30 or whatever the hell time it came on, East Coast.
The first of the three main events.
Yeah. Or whatever. It was 11 or whatever. No knock at the talent, right? They worked their butts off. Willow worked her ass off. Same thing with Mercedes. They wanted everybody to look great. With that said, I think they were going a billion freaking miles an hour from the beginning. And I was texting with a wrestler during that match, okay? So that was my cool little insight of everything. And the person writes, do you see something wrong with this match? I said, yeah, they're going like a billion miles an hour. He goes, it's only going to make sense if they slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't. And he goes, well, it's only making sense if they don't slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
First do, then don't. And I started laughing. And then he goes, listen, I like this match. I take back what I said about the first like 5 minutes. And
I agree with you, by the way. I thought
okay.
I thought they were trying to, and some of it may have been nerves, right? Mercedes.
I think it was all nerves, and that's what this specific person said. They
But
go, I've been there. I've been in that. I've come back from an injury. I've come back from something, and your nerves get to you. It's a big moment, and you're just thinking, I got to do the next thing.
yeah.
But I mean, it didn't really slow down. And to me, like that first night watching it, all I saw was them spamming moves, move and a move and another move and another move. I watched it the next day with my daughter because she really wanted to see it. And I thought it was way better watching it the second time. I can't tell you why. But I still will say they were going. I mean, if they had brought it down like a little bit, it would have been more of a story that they were telling. Instead, I just got. Listen, I've seen matches like this at an indie show, and everybody loses their freaking minds, and it's like a 10-star match because it's on the indies, and you don't see that too often. I thought they could have slowed this thing down and told a little bit of a story, and get a little bit more methodical. But who the F am I to judge a match? I don't really do that. I don't judge the match qualities as far as what they're choosing to do in that sense with movesets. Was it a little fast? Yeah.
I really liked Willow's selling in that match. She even did the fisherman suplex, and she was selling the leg.
That was great.
While
yeah,
doing
that was great.
By the way, tell Stone Cold Steve Austin I said what's up next time you guys text about wrestling matches.
You know what? You know what? You may be close. Not on a Steve Austin level, but maybe generationally. Slow down, kid.
I would say that was my favorite match. I don't think it was the best match, but when it came to like that emotional experience that you have with the wrestling match, and Mercedes coming back and Willow, I saw Willow at Collision, and I turned to my buddy Paul Fontaine, and who was next to me, and I was like, man, this woman really is so confident right now. She's so confident in her ability to be a star, be a budding superstar. And I thought this was really, if you look at like who's the MVP of the weekend or whatever, I think she's got to be up there. I thought she was fantastic at Collision. I thought she was really great on the pay-per-view, and you can just sort of see the confidence exude, which was not the same. You go back a year, that was maybe the one thing that she was missing, right? Was that ability to do that promo, but she is figured out how to engage with the audience just tremendously well. By the way, at Collision, yes, I was sitting right behind Will Washington's family. I saw his wife. I said hello to his wife.
Nice.
I reminded her of the sweet interview that we did with Will. She remembered doing that, and then his daughter and son were there, and that was a lot of fun just to kind of hang out. And I was talking to his daughter, and she was.
Will is blessed with an amazingly beautiful, amazing family. We're friends on Facebook, and I see just the amazingness of his kids and his wife. It's great to see somebody that is so good, like such a nice guy, do something positive and make it. He started off with me. He was a tech podcaster. Isn't that wild? Same backstory, and I champion that guy. I want nothing but success for good people.
Me too, absolutely. And I was teasing his daughter because I was saying, how cool her dad is and how good of a job he's doing. And I said, and I'll give it to him, he is a slightly bigger Mariah Carey fan than I am. And she said that she was the biggest Mariah Carey fan. So I think her
we got
in battle.
I think so.
So Will Ospreay and Roderick Strong probably had the best match, though there was a lot of craziness during that match to kind of set up the MJF thing, which we'll talk about in a second. But I also saw Will Ospreay live and in person. We were just walking in the opposite directions, and he exudes so much on the television screen. And when I walked past him, I was just amazed how small of a human being he is. He's like, I don't know, he's like 5'7" or 5'8", maybe. I'm just like, I'm just eyeballing it as I'm walking past him, but I just waved at him and said, "What's up?"
Ospreay, I think he's,
but also like
that.
slim.
No,
like really
I think Ospreay's
lean.
6 feet tall, dude. I think
There's
Ospreay's
no
6
way.
feet.
Absolutely
No?
no way. No way in hell that he's 6 feet tall.
Is it like a
Um,
Shawn Michaels 6 foot and he's really like 5'10" on a good day?
well, I was with Brian Alvarez over the weekend, and I talked to him about it because I don't know. I don't know what Brian says he is, so I won't give his shoot height. But when I talked to him, he said, he's probably an inch or two taller than me. And I was like, I'm not sure about that, dude. But yeah, I
I'm
was just amazed because
5'9".
like,
I'm
yeah,
5'9" and Osprey.
you and I are close to the same height. We're almost the same
Like,
height.
I was 5'10", dude. I had it. I had 5'10" for like 3.5 weeks. Summer of 2003.
No, but
Now I'm
the
just
hair
shrinking.
the hair
The
an
hair and the
inch.
shoes, the loafers. I get
Yeah.
about an inch from the loafer, inch and a half from the loafers. The hair gives me another, so I'm like really like 6'2".
I also saw Malachi Black in the MGM. Again, another guy who just looks like a big dude on TV and is not as big as you would think outside the ring.
Yeah.
And I think I may have been the only one to notice Thunder Rosa walking the strip because she didn't have any of her makeup on. Obviously, she's like a normal person just walking down the strip. I was like, I'm probably the only person who's recognizing her out of character. But overall fun weekend. I didn't stay for the pay-per-view because I didn't want to be super tired coming home on Monday, and plus I wanted to watch it with Dave and do the show with Dave
Yeah.
after, so we did that. But great weekend. The pay-per-view is the pay-per-view. You're gonna have, the hardcore AEW fans are gonna love it. The bad faith fans are gonna hate it, even though they didn't watch it. And as usual, for me, I'm kind of like, I'm like, yeah, there was good stuff, there was bad stuff. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I don't know if you watched King and Queen of the Ring on Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
but the importance level of Double or Nothing versus the importance level of King and Queen of the Ring, I thought the AEW show, like, they just tried way more stuff, a little bit more noteworthy to sort of the overall wrestling zeitgeist. The WWE show was just kind of like, it reminded me of like a Saturday night's main event where they don't have like a hot thing and they're just kind of going through the motions getting ready for their hot thing. Like, the wrestling was
Mm.
fun, like Randy Orton and Gunther, what a great matchup, but that was like, if you thought about, if they faced each other in WrestleMania and they gave their 10 out of 10 effort. I don't know, that was that about a 7.5. Like, it was good, but it was like not their top match if they were to do it again. Cody and Logan Paul was, some smoke and mirrors, and some of it was fun and some of it was a little bit like, I've seen this before from Logan Paul. And then, yeah, everything else was just, sort of there. The triple threat was okay, but I'm just not a big fan of triple threat matches. But so I don't know. I was just like kind of unimpressed with King and Queen of the Ring. I thought maybe it would be like they would try to have like the wrestling show of the weekend, but I thought it was overshadowed by Double or Nothing, positively and negatively, by the way.
Do you know what the attendance was for that Saudi show?
I do not.
I don't either. I know it's not like they don't really talk about it, but I'm curious because it looked like there weren't a lot. It wasn't like a major event for them there.
Mm-hmm.
They shoot it weird. You got that big LCD button behind you. It was fine. It was whatever it was. Glad to see Liv with the title.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, there's a little storyline there with her and Dominic and what they're doing. Becky Lynch now, they're doing the storyline of her. She hasn't signed her renewal yet, so Dave said last night she's probably going to be taking some time off. I don't imagine she's going to show up on AEW television.
I don't see that happening.
But because her ability to be a mom and to be a superstar and to be, a married couple, like all of that exists because she is on WWE television, right? Like I can't imagine she's going to want to leave and her husband's going to be in the other company. That doesn't, but hey, she's a trendsetter. So maybe she can figure out how to make that work. I don't see it personally. But getting back to AEW before we talk about this Matt Bellany Puck News story that came out late last night, what'd you think about MJF's return?
Great timing. They need him. He looked great. He did the Triple H thing.
Yes, he
He
did.
cut the MJF promo. What I found interesting was in his promo, he was like, "Yeah, last year was shit. I hated that mask. I hated that kangaroo kick." And I'm like, I thought it was his plan. I thought that was him. The
It was
brochachos.
him.
And, I thought that was him. I thought he wanted to do it. And you know what? I guess he realized what crap that was because I hated it. I hated it from day one. I don't think it worked for him. It was weird. The whole thing was weird. Like he's doing this thing and he's getting the crowd to do. It made it so goofy. But it's good that he's back. I don't know. I guess it's him and Adam when Adam's healthy.
I don't know. He just kicked that dude in the balls and hit a brain buster and left him laying. I don't know if we need to see the match anymore.
Why would we? I actually don't want to see it. I'm not into it. I'm not into that program.
Adam Cole needs to be a heel. MJF said he's a heel. We can't turn Adam Cole babyface and I don't think it works in that way. So you're having two heels wrestle, and there's no way that Adam Cole is going to be allowed to be more dastardly than MJF. So he's kind of left for dead. I would personally just move on, but I think they're probably going to still do something. It would be my guess.
Yeah, maybe he feuds with Wardlow a little. Maybe he feuds with the other guys. I didn't like that Adam Cole stuff from the beginning, so I'm very adamant on that.
You and I were in Las Vegas 2 years ago last weekend. We got word that AEW was doing their meet and greet, and one MJF no-showed the meet and greet. And you remember that weekend because it was kind of the talk of the little suite that we were in. We did an interview with Brian and Dave.
Yeah, we were all waiting for Tony for his interview.
We were waiting for
and
Tony.
He never showed up.
And he could never pull the trigger on when we could do it. I was essentially on call all evening that night. And so the idea, like there was two ideas at that point. We're like, okay, if this is a shoot, like if MJF screwed over AEW because he wants to show some leverage, here's why that would be bad. And on the other end, we thought, well, if this is a work and Tony is working this reality stuff into his storyline, what you risk is your loyal hardcore fan base like believing in you as a creative person for booking. And so, we all kind of thought like, this is kind of a bad idea on every end for this to happen the way that it's happening. Yeah. And then I think it was the night after Dynamite. Didn't MJF talk about the war of 2024 and how he's, going to use his leverage and how Tony Khan is a money mark and this and that. And so then we didn't really hear much about that, but it's always kind of out there. Like whenever Tony was asked about it, he still played kayfabe on it. And then just on Sunday night, MJF shows us a tattoo on his calf, and he essentially said that he's AEW for life. So we went 2 years with that being the payoff of this entire story.
Yeah, one day I will tell you the story of that bidding war of 2024 bit. One day I will tell the story on the air. Yeah. Soon I'll tell the story. Okay. I think
that's called a tease, everybody.
It's a tease.
For
I'm going to tease
show
it.
down
I don't want to. Yeah, I want to run it by somebody before I bring it up. But listen, MJF is really smart, and I think Tony very much likes the kayfabe reality stuff. I think if he could do it more, he would. But that kind of becomes tricky.
Bit him in the ass, though.
Did it? But I don't. I don't know if your goal is to work the audience and kind of blend reality with what you're doing on TV. I don't think that hurts you. But again, I think people look for different reasons. I honestly, many people watch things and they consume media to be upset at something. Mm-hmm. So I think you're never going to make those people happy. But they were trying to work something. If there was some truth to it, I do believe there was some reality to it, because MJF definitely at that point felt that he was underpaid compared to other people that were coming into the company. And I don't know how much Tony made it right, but it looks like he did, and he kept them happy. And now, it's a very important year for them. So they need MJF.
I always go back to the night before All Out of that same year, which was the night that CM Punk went crazy in the press conference. And Dave and I did that interview with Tony Khan. I've mentioned it a bunch of times. And I just remember before we did that interview, Brian Alvarez was telling Dave that, I don't know if we should go to the presser. It's so long. We kind of need to get our show done. And so Dave and I do that interview with Tony, and Tony asked Dave, are you going to go to the press conference? And Tony's like, I don't know, Brian, I don't know if Brian wants to go. And so Tony was like, no, please, I want you to be there. I would really appreciate if you come. Please come to the press conference. I think it'd be great for you to come. And so I had like the little thing, the little light went off in my head. I was like, oh, there's going to be some angle that's going to be interesting at the press conference. Now, this is not me saying Brawl Out was a work. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But I am saying that I wonder what thing that he had planned on doing that night that may have just got steamrolled by a very angry and injured CM Punk, who was also had low blood sugar at the same time, because that has always stuck in the back of my head as like, he did want Dave there for some reason, like,
Punk did.
There's something's going to be happening right at this press conference, and then something did happen.
Tony wanted Dave there.
Tony, he after we finished that interview with him, he was like, I really want you to be there at the press conference. Please come to the thing. It's it's going to be cool. Or I forget exactly how he said it, but in my pro wrestling brain, I immediately thought, oh, there's going to be like some crazy angle that he's going to shoot at the press conference, and he wants Dave to be there so that Dave can talk about it on the podcast. But then all hell broke loose. So, I mean, in one sense, I'm sort of glad that Tony did that, because then Dave and Brian were right there to watch the chaos. But on the other hand, I'm just kind of wondering, like, what I wonder if there was something else that they had planned that just went awry because of that. What happened?
Let me ask you this. In hindsight now, do you think Tony made the right call by releasing CM Punk?
I would say no. And the only reason I would say no is because I think the locker room had kind of moved on from CM Punk being, sort of negative, because they had split the brands. He was only on his side. He wasn't messing with the Dynamite stuff. Now, who is to say that it would have stayed that way? Maybe something else would have happened, and then you sort of regret it. But just for that moment, no, I would have iced him. I would have absolutely iced him, let him stay under contract for the rest of the amount of time. Now, there are other people in the company who, if they did something and they wanted out, you could probably let them go and they wouldn't mean much. But this is CM Punk, and it absolutely, and look, they already, he didn't hand deliver Cody Rhodes to WWE, but Cody is the biggest star in wrestling, or one of the 2 or 3 biggest stars in wrestling. And he's just coming off of AEW to WWE, like, oh, here you go on a platter, Cody Rhodes. Here's your big star. Go forth and set records. And they kind of did the same thing with CM Punk too. Now, obviously the situations were completely different. CM Punk was forcing his hand, but he could have also just iced him and just been like, no, you're going to be under contract until you're not, and then you can decide to leave after that is over. But CM Punk kind of came in there as the new hot guy, right? Just right off of AEW television.
You still try to make it work, man. You still try to make it work. You have an asset like that, you try to make it work in every possible way. And if you can't, you ice, like you said, you ice them, and you sit at home and you say, you know what? This is the cost of business. I'd rather not give it to my competitor.
Here's someone in this corner of it, someone sort of in the same vein. What do you like? Do you know anything about Ricky Starks' contract?
I've been asked that multiple times from people. People in media, wrestling media. So I feel like something is going on. Unless they're trying to come up with a way to bring him back in and do something. I don't know. But I mean, is he too damaged on the AEW brand to do anything with at this point? I definitely think there
they
was a
took
drop
his
the ball moment with him.
they took his tag team partner and gave him to Jericho. I don't imagine Ricky Starks comes under the learning tree. They were just tag team champions, and now he's off television again.
Yeah.
And so it would lead me to believe that like maybe they think he's going to WWE, but at the same time, I have no idea when his contract is up to even know if that is like a valid reason for him not to be on TV right now.
But he'll make more money in WWE. I don't know what kind of position he'll be put in. He's not going to be put in a world title picture.
Cody's homie. Just come right in as Cody's homie.
I don't know. Does he need that? Does Cody need that right now?
I don't know if he needs that, but he can literally elevate Ricky to a top level immediately by just coming in, and then you set stuff down the line for them to actually break up. How old is Ricky Starks? Do you know?
Look it up right now. I don't think he's that old.
I may
32, 31, 34.
Oh wow, he's older than I thought.
Yeah.
I may actually be seeing him on an indie show on Friday. My buddy Ben Cruz for the Ringer, Big Time Wrestling. I think they're in the East Bay. They are doing a show, and I think Ricky Starks versus QT is maybe the main event on this indie show. Like, I wouldn't normally go, but my buddy from the Ringer was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about going to this show," and I was like, maybe I'll tag along. Like, I haven't been to a local Bay Area independent wrestling show in years, so that'll. I'm not 100% sure, but I was like, I'd love to see Ricky Starks, do an indie show, and kind of miss that guy on AEW television.
Yeah.
34, huh? Yeah, that is much older than I thought. I thought, maybe late 20s or early 30s, but 34. He's not old. Not in today's wrestling. He's still got many
not
years
old at all.
ahead of him.
You have Edge jumping off of the top of a cage at 50. So
you saw he broke his leg, right?
What did he do? He fractured his tibia?
Mm-hmm.
He's out, and I mean, at least 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, I don't know what that is going to be like, but when he did that jump, it was less of a jump and more of a fall, and maybe there's a little bit worried about, maybe he was worried about jumping too far over, but it was almost like as he's in the air, he just decommitted from the bit. He's like, "Nope,
that's what it was."
My mind in midair.
And that's so dangerous. That's so dangerous. He really did decommit. I don't know what. It almost looks like he was going to go for like a splash, and he changed his mind to do an elbow, but it was too late.
Yeah, I don't know. The splash seems like it would have been safer for him. Maybe he was worried about, because didn't he tie up Malachi in barbed wire? Was he worried about jumping on the barbed wire? I don't know. But, the other thing about that is he as a 50-year-old man, shouldn't someone have told him, like, dude, we've got blood, we've got barbed wire, we're in a cage match, we don't need it to do that. Yeah. Like, and maybe there is nobody to tell him that, or, maybe he does have kind of carte blanche on what he wants to do, but man, he is, that's a tough thing for him. Not that he's go ahead.
I feel bad for Gangrel. I think they were going to do something here with this Brood stuff. With Christian losing, and I know the plan has always been that they'll have one run as a tag team.
Yeah, I
don't know if that's now or.
There's lots of gossip going on on these Vegas trips, and kind of asked about like what's the thing, and I guess they have like some long-term story that they do want to tell for them getting back that, probably has a bunch of twists and turns and something that they've really put some thought into. But God, the whole thing
Yeah.
has to be for them to get back together. By the way, did the 15-year-old version of Andrew Zarian pop when Gangrel came underneath the ring?
Dude, we were talking about this last week about the vampire bit I did on Mad Men, right? We were talking
Yeah.
about this where I
Yes,
ranked
yes.
every vampire in wrestling. So I kind of had an idea they were going to do something like this. So I'm like, oh, it's funny. I was talking to Rich. Rich goes, oh, let's rank the vampires. Love Gangrel showing up. And dude, he moved great.
Yeah, he looked really good. He did.
I mean,
really
he did 2 impalers, but that was it. But I mean, he got up good. He didn't. I mean, he's still active. He's still wrestling. How old is Gangrel now?
Older than Ricky Starks, I know that.
Let's see. He's 55 years old. He's only 3 years older than he's 2 years older than Jericho. Okay. Edge wrestler. Edge is 50 years old. He's only I cannot believe he's only 5 years older than Edge. I mean, listen, it was cool to see him, but I hope they do something with him, I don't know what you could do with him.
Yeah, maybe that has to take a back seat while Edge is, getting over the injury. But for us, for a here or there kind of thing, like having him back is not terrible as long as it doesn't become like the Matt Hardy thing where he's on television all the time and then gets overexposed.
No, listen, have him come in every now and then. They do it with Rob Van Dam, and it's always fun. Van Dam shows up in AEW. It's always a fun thing to see. I remember when I was a kid, like every now and then, like you would have some old guy show up, and I was like, and my father would be like, "Oh, I know that guy," and he would tell me like a whole story about the person. I think that's great. I think that's fantastic for wrestling fans to see guys like him.
Yeah, the problem is for us, we've been watching wrestling consistently for so long and not I know you gave it up for a little bit but then came back
for like 2-3 years.
Yeah, when I was in college I wasn't watching as closely as I was before then, but I generally since probably 1985 86 I've been paying really close attention. And the problem is if you look at that time span, someone like RVD coming back to me doesn't really mean a lot. Cause like, oh, I just saw that guy, not that long ago. But then when you look at it, you're like, oh, wow, it was actually like 15 years ago. But to a new fan who missed the RVD experience and they only have read about him or they've just seen old footage of him, that does actually probably seem really cool to the same way that, for you and I, someone, Bruno coming back in 87 or something. I'm not that I'm comparing Bruno Sammartino to Rob Van Dam, by the way.
Listen, I got to see, and I never thought I would, I got to see Muta wrestle multiple times. That was very cool for me. As a wrestling fan that grew up in the era that I grew up in, I never thought that, there is obviously wrestlers that you will never see wrestle. I got to see Sting wrestle. Never in WCW. Maybe I went to that he was on that card. I don't remember if he was on that 98 card in at the Coliseum. But there's a lot of these guys that I never got to see wrestle, and it was really cool. Like I got to see the Ultimate Warrior wrestle, right? Once. I got to see Warrior once because he was never really around. I got to see Flair a billion times. I got to see Hogan. Savage, I got to see him wrestle like twice. Which is really weird to say that, considering that was the guy. If you are 22 years old, you never got to see Rob Van Dam wrestle, you know of him, you've seen him on TV, but you really weren't following him. I think it's really cool when you're given that opportunity, when done right. I think bringing back Van Dam is good. I think you could do something with Gangrel. You know who I want to see come back? Lance Storm. That's who I want.
Not that would be amazing.
If Lance comes back, one last match for Lance. I did sworn to you that they were going to do that with Jericho. When Jericho was doing that like all the matches he was having with Nick Gage and all those guys, I could have sworn they were going to do Lance.
I did text Lance, or not text him. I Twitter DM'd him over the weekend. He's been dealing with this health issue with his nasal passage and such. And, you know, just checking in on him, hadn't talked to him in a little bit, but I also had to mention that Don Callis, you know, Don Callis was all over the MGM. And my buddy, Paul Fontaine, who I mentioned, was at I don't know if it was like a restaurant or like a sandwich shop or some breakfast thing or whatever, but he was like, yeah, I saw Don. And, you know, we were all waiting in line, and, you know, he tried to whisper to somebody to try and cut the line, and and they didn't let him. So you just stand in line like everybody else. It's like, oh
Hold on,
man, I would have let Callis cut in line.
I wrote to Lance yesterday. I said, hold on, about Don. I said something about Don. He goes, "Oh, fuck him." I'm trying to find it. Yeah. It's by the way, Don Callis was fantastic.
He is really good at his job. I mean, he's one of the better promos in wrestling, I think. All right, let's quickly, for the last 15 minutes or so here. Yeah. I mentioned at the top, Matt Bellany from Puck News. He wrote about AEW. Now, Matt Bellany, I've actually traded emails with him before around the time of, you know, the Saudi Arabia buying WWE rumors, and he was like, yeah, that's bullshit. And so, you know, not that I have a relationship or a friendship with him. I'm just a subscriber, and so I really like his work. He's also had Nick Khan on his podcast a bunch of times. And so when I saw in his newsletter, the newsletter is called What I'm Hearing. So Matt Bellany used to be an editor for the Hollywood Reporter. And so, you know, he's got sources, he knows everybody in Hollywood. And so he did a mailbag issue last night. And so the first question in the mailbag that he answered said, everyone's talking about David Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery probably losing the NBA, but nobody's talking about the other rights deal he's about to bungle, All Elite Wrestling. Why?
Interesting.
So then Matt wrote, because WBD's Turner Sports is still in exclusive negotiating window with AEW, meaning that's why we haven't been talking about it, because they're still in this exclusive period. But then he wrote, the upstart WWE competitor signed a multi-year deal with Turner in 2020 with an option that Turner exercised, which is why we thought the deal was going to expire last year. They exercised the option, so now the deal expires this year. And now Zaslav and TNT Sports head Louis Silberwasser would like to keep the 5 hours of AEW programming per week on TNT and TBS. But the clock is ticking. I'm told the exclusive window closes in July, and AEW leader Tony Khan is said to be disappointed with the offer currently on the table. Now, there's a bit of a definition of what that means depending on what side you're on, you know, with what you believe. He's saying Tony Khan is said to be disappointed. I know there's Dave said last night on Wrestling Observer Radio that I could, you know, there's I think there's a story on the website right now. I don't want to misquote Dave. Of all people, me misquoting Dave would not be great, right?
Travesty.
So in a story that's just on the front page right now of this website, it says, according to Dave Meltzer, AEW sources have told him that the first offer was not disappointing to Tony Khan, but the two sides have yet to reach any deal. Okay, so you could take it that way, or you could take it as, if he's not disappointed in the deal, he would have already signed it. So you could take it both ways, I think. So then he goes to write, Khan also surely knows that Zaz losing the NBA would give AEW more leverage, even though the money to re-up AEW is a mere drop in the NBA bucket. Like, we're talking just complete opposite, you know, deals money-wise. You know, one is for, you know, they're haggling 2.3 billion and 2.1 billion. And now we're talking about AEW, you know, 100 million. Like, just the amounts are so vastly different. Okay.
Yeah.
So then he wrote, if the window closes without a deal, others could swoop in for those rights, as Comcast has done with the NBA. Extra awkward because WBD is said to own a stake in the league. So he's saying right here that it would be awkward if someone else swooped in to get the AEW rights because WBD is said to own a stake in AEW. What did you think about that line?
Okay, can I backtrack to the whole thing, or you want me to hit
Yeah,
it piece
yeah.
by
Oh
piece?
no, go whatever
Okay.
you want.
So, and then remind me if I forgot anything.
Okay.
I would say reading that story, like I agree with you 100%. Depending on what side of the fence you stand on, it's going to be either better or worse. One side is, yeah, he's not getting what he wants, and that means he's not going to get over $100 million. I I don't think it's as bad as what the internet is putting out there. And you also don't know what kind of tone he's speaking in when he says disappointed. Okay, you know what? I could be disappointed in a lot of things, but it's still a great offer. Or I could be disappointed that we're not where we are, where we should be.
You could be you could want double what you're getting, or double what they're offering, but their offer may still be really beneficial to you. So that could be a disappointment in that aspect too.
Yeah, I will tell you that there was an offer that was given to Tony. It was not a full offer. It was just for streaming. Or I gotta look at my messages. I'm not. It was for definitely for streaming. It's for like the digital side of things. I don't know if that included being off of whatever service and going to another one that was archives. But Tony opted to bundle everything together. He didn't want to do a partial deal at the time just for streaming. And you know what? They can't get a TV deal, and now he needs to figure out what the hell I'm doing and split the networks. You know, whatever he's going to do.
Sure.
I don't know if that's the disappointment or it's a financial thing, but I could tell you, I mean, they're gonna. I would be shocked. My thing is breaking. I'm sorry. I would be shocked if they leave WBD. I never heard a number. Nobody has once said a number to me. I will most likely say that if people are putting out a number, it's bullshit because NDAs are most likely signed, non-disclosures are signed. Once you sign an NDA, you really don't want to talk to anybody, and there's only a couple people in those meetings. You're not going to... Same thing with WWE. When everybody's like, how come nobody knew that this deal with Netflix was happening? It's because the second you start having serious conversations, you sign papers, and everybody stops talking. And you're not going to jeopardize losing money or risking the deal by talking. I think, there's tremendous truth to that article. Whether or not it's in, the context is coming forward or he's holding back on some stuff that he knows, because I'm sure he doesn't want to put out everything that he's heard. Listen, I'm taking it as these negotiation things happen. Sometimes you're in a very positive upward, and then there's a little monkey wrench that gets thrown at you, and now you got to wait, and you got to renegotiate, and you got to pivot a little bit. That's just how these things are. I would be shocked if they don't sign in the summer. This was supposed to be a second quarter thing. It was supposed to be done by now.
Bellany says he believes it expires in July.
I believe he's 100% correct.
I was kind of putting the tea leaves together. Like I was trying to get some information out of Dave on Sunday night. Like he wouldn't budge. I was thinking late June, early July, but like sooner than we realize. That's kind of the gauge that I had. Okay, but then what about the piece of it would extra awkward because WBD is said to own a stake in the league, which he's calling AEW the league.
Yeah. That's what many people have heard, including myself.
And
I've alluded to that many times. Tony was asked about this.
Yeah.
And Tony's response was not absolutely not. That's ridiculous. I own 100%. He said he controls it. He's in charge.
Controls the stock,
you know? He controls, so he controls the stock, which is, I'm sure. But I was told that very early on I mean, you and I have spoken about this. I mean, I don't want
Yeah.
to give away a lot of the conversation, but
we've talked about it somewhat on this show as well.
I've spoken off the air with you tons too about this. I had a very interesting conversation with somebody that is, I guess, a detractor of AEW's.
Really? There's not.
Okay.
You talked to Jim Cornette. Come on, you can give it.
You're really close. I'm not going to say who it is, but they're vocal. They're vocal about things.
Yeah.
I thought it was very odd that this person had heard exactly what I had heard with the same names being associated. Okay. And
connected.
we do not run in the same circle. Listen, it very easily could be just one guy that's high up there that said it, and then everybody else took it and ran with it. Very possible. I'm not there day to day, and I don't talk to these people day to day. But I do think that, that is something that a lot of people have heard. I don't know the depth of it, but I've always said I've never seen, and I work with, if you know my day job, you know what I do, and I work with many different brands and many different companies and different types of businesses, individuals. I've never seen synergy between a television product and the network this close, where they very much are proud of having that product on their TV show. They love it. Listen, I talk to people in sales, I talk to people in marketing, I talk to people on the executive level. I've never been once told anything negative about AEW. Never. But you know what I have heard? People from USA trashing WWE, people from Fox trashing WWE, other content partners that I know, just very openly speak about things that they don't like about what they do. I've never had that once happen with WBD. So either it's a very kumbaya relationship, or maybe there is a little smoke to that fire.
All right.
I think that's a positive if WBD is involved. I think that's great.
Let me finish the email and then we can wrap up here. We've got a few minutes left. So then he wrote, I'm not sure how alluring AEW would be to another platform, which is where I think people got a little bit frustrated with as well, especially since only non-WWE partners could bid. Who are those non-WWE partners? Well, you're talking about Fox, and I don't think it would be for Big Fox. I think Brandon Thurston had a note that said, he could see something like FS1. There's also Amazon out there. The one that I think is like, this would be the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, would be ESPN. And now people would say, well, why would you go on ESPN? They run so many sports, they'd get preempted.
Yeah.
ESPN has this little product coming out, which is completely over the top. It is not their, they're basically putting all of their content that they show on their linear channels in an app that you could just subscribe to so that you don't have to have cable. Now, what if ESPN decided to make AEW streaming only on their app? Now, immediately, AEW would have less of an audience. But if you sort of believe in the idea of ESPN and Disney understanding how to grow a subscriber network, maybe ESPN could actually make AEW even more popular. That is my sort of pie in the sky. I know there are some people who would think that, streaming only would be terrible for them. But I think if we saw what they've done with the UFC, and I'm not comparing the two sports because UFC is a giant brand by comparison, there's something that you could do there with AEW and ESPN over the top. But they'd have to be interested, obviously. Okay. Yeah. So he wrote, but the wrestling shows still do okay on the Turner networks. It's reliable programming, and a rival suitor could further push Zaslav into hot water in his cable carriage deals. Now, this goes back to the idea that Zaslav allowed the NBA to escape during their exclusive negotiating window. And once he let them escape, Comcast came in with a deal, and so did Amazon, by the way. But Comcast came in with a deal that trumped what WBD could do for them because they have an actual broadcast network channel that WBD doesn't. So WBD wants to come and match this deal. And the NBA is like, you can't match it. Like, you don't have a broadcast network to put our games on Sunday night. Like, the NBC's Sunday night NFL programming. I think the idea is just to replace that with NBA when the football season is over. Now, it won't do the same crazy ratings that the NFL does, but I think that's the idea. There's no way that Warner Brothers could actually duplicate that effort. So this is him saying, is Zaslav going to let this other group escape the exclusive negotiation window without a deal, knowing that there could be another company that blows his offer out of the water? And Tony Khan's like, sorry, guys, see you later.
Yeah, I would say, listen, $2.5 billion a year is a huge amount of money to pay for the NBA. I mean, that's a lot of money, and I think they're looking at it as they're in a cost cutting mode. Other than the playoffs, can they justify? Can they bring in something else that'll maybe stop some of the hemorrhage in the viewership from leaving the station? Because Jesus, I can't hold anything today. I don't think Zaslav is a fan of wrestling. I don't think he gives a crap about wrestling. I think at the end of the day, he's looking at the P&Ls and he's looking at how much advertising revenue can we generate for for AEW or USA. My brain again. I don't know what's happened here. My brain just stopped. I would say that for AEW, this is a positive because money's open, but.
Mm-hmm.
They're number 3 in all of cable most nights. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Really hard. If you're not the NBA, you're not the NHL, you're not basketball, whatever event is happening. If you're not live sports, that's really hard to do. But where else are they going to go?
Yeah.
They really don't have an option. I mean, Paramount, what's the option with Paramount? You're going to be on, you're not going on CBS proper. So that's out the window. I don't think it's going to be Disney getting involved. I don't see ESPN grabbing them. So you go streaming and you're dead in the water. You don't have the relationship with your audience that's built over the last, 40 years or so that Vince did. Vince leaving linear now, or WWE leaving linear. It's a risky move, but you have the money that's going to justify you doing it. Because they're throwing everything at you. You are the flagship for professional wrestling, regardless if you're the best product or not. And you also have brand recognition that extends decades. AEW only has 5 years, and they're in a building phase. When you go behind streaming or you go behind a paywall, you're alienating a lot of that viewership. The ease of discoverability. That's I've being in tech. For all the years that I was in tech, I always said discoverability is the key to success. That's why every one of these podcasters got successful. It wasn't because their shows were great in 2012, 13, whatever it was. It was because they were doing consistent material and you had the ability to be found. You were on a database that was used by hundreds of millions of people every day. Being on cable helps. Being on Max helps. But if you remove those two, and you just go digital, what happens then?
But here's a counter to that point. And I'm in agreement with you, by the way.
Yeah.
But if you sign up where your programming is only on cable and there is no streaming setup, you're basically signing up to lose audience immediately, right? Because the cable's just going to keep going down.
It needs to be a 2-part solution. It needs to be a 2-part. It needs to be exactly what, and I put that tweet out months ago. This is what I was told from day one. This is something that Tony very much wanted because he has that foresight. He wants a hybrid simulcast of sorts for that company. And I think that's a benefit.
Even the next day would be fine, but a simulcast would be interesting. I don't know if the cable distributors would be so happy about that, but
no, but they do it with the NBA.
They did it with the NBA, but it was not in the deal. It was WBD basically going, we're going to do this, and sorry.
We're going to deal with it. Yeah. They found a loophole.
So, all right, let me read the last piece of this, and we'll get out of here. I know we're going to be running a couple minutes late. But then he said, so this was written Monday. He wrote, last night after the league's Double or Nothing pay-per-view event, and then in parentheses he wrote, yes, I watch pro wrestling press conferences now. Khan said, I am happy working for Mr. David Zaslav, and I'm hoping we can do it for a long time. So Tony Khan is politically, playing it for David Zaslav. He's not creating any animosity. He's only been positive about Zaslav. So that is, that is probably the right way to do this thing. But that is it. So yeah, man, I thought that was interesting. I'm happy that Bellany actually covered it because he's a Hollywood guy. He's the fact that he wrote the 3 letters AEW in his newsletter, I thought were very important because it shows that, even people at his level are seeing AEW as sports programming or sports adjacent programming or whatever that actually matters in the big picture. So I thought that was actually very positive for him to be writing about them.
No, it totally matters. It totally matters because, wrestling really set off cable television. They've been there since the inception of cable. They've always been successful on cable, and it's a meter, it's a gauge for everything else that happens. Whatever's happening in professional wrestling as far as viewership goes, unless something, travesty happens and creative goes out the window and now it sucks, it is a great representation of cable viewership. The 18 to 34s are dwindling. The 18 to 49s are kind of still there, but the over 50 is who's watching. It is a great representation of the viewership of cable television. But the other side is, what else you're competing with now? TikTok. You're not just competing, you're competing with YouTube. You know what I watched all day today? Instead of having Fox News on or MSNBC or CNN, which normally I have the news on when I'm doing or working, right? Or mostly it's CNBC, to be honest. I was watching a compilation of some guy's Soprano episode reviews of the entire seasons. And I had it on, and he has like an hour and a half blocks, and that's what I had on my TV.
There you go.
You know what? You know who's getting screwed there? Anything that's on television and anything that's ad-driven with cable viewership. That's just the market. It's changing. It's changing totally. I think this will, for AEW to stay on WBD, it's a benefit for WBD. Same for AEW. They need a network partner like that. It's too soon to go digital. I don't see that happening. If anybody is suggesting that, that is terrible advice. That help?
All right, we're going to end it here.
You're in the same space. Yeah, let me just, one more thing. You're in the same space as me. You have been deeply involved in technology for majority of your career. You've had great success in it. That is where I came from. I came from technology. And we tend to see things before it happens. WWE going to Netflix, I would have told you 5 years ago, was a terrible decision, would have been detrimental to that brand. And I still stand by that. Today, and I always said 5 years from now, we don't know. Today, I still think we're going to, and remember, they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're not totally on digital.
Yes.
Netflix only has, I think it's like 88 million US subscribers.
North America, probably.
North American. So they're going on a station that's less viewership. Technically,
I don't think USA has that many subscribers these days.
Let's say
or
USA
not now
Network.
or SmackDown, yeah. For Fox, yes, but I don't think.
Yeah, for Fox.
I don't
wow,
think USA.
It's tiny.
Yeah,
it is. It is 70 million down from 100 million in 2011. That is wild.
Yeah.
So you know what? They're going to a much stronger station. I take it back.
Yeah,
smart move by them. I had no idea. I thought it was still very much in the high 80s, low 90s.
I want to say cable's dropping, or it was dropping, between like 3 and 5 million every year, just by subscribers in general. So
we should, you know what, you and I should do like an extra show and where we just talk about this, just the change in the landscape of television and where it's headed. Technology wise, I would love to.
There's lots of really smart people to bring on to have that conversation too.
Yeah.
All right, we'll end it here. We're a couple minutes late, but I thought it was a relevant conversation. By the way, my buddy Brad from our Discord says that he believes that Will Ospreay is actually 5'10", and he said he's 5'9", and Will was a little bit taller than him, so he showed a picture. So maybe as I'm trying to sort of gauge it as he's walking towards me, maybe his walk or whatever. Don't tell Will Ospreay I think he's
I
5'8".
can't
Like
believe you. I can't believe you said he's 5'8".
if he's 5'10", he and I are same height. Maybe he's even a little bit. But it was just kind of like we were walking in other directions, and I was just amazed because when he gets in that wrestling ring, he looks like just a giant spectacle of a performer. So that was the lesson, was that he's bigger than life on television. So that it was supposed to be a props, and I kind of maybe made it a little negative. That's my bad. All right, Andrew, we will attempt to be back next week. It's always, sometimes it can be a little dicey with our schedules, but I prepare to be back next week, and I can't wait to do this again. Had a blast talking about this show, or talking about all the things on this show. So for Andrew Zarian, I'm Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.